on finding Bigfoot. For centuries, the sprawling forests and farmlands of northern Minnesota near the Canadian border have been home to a vast array of wild creatures, and according to some, Bigfoot.
One of the scariest things ever. It was just boom, boom, boom.
We're up here in the Moose Lake area of northern Minnesota because some BFRO investigators have been checking out this farm area for a few years now. While camping up here, local BFRO member Andy Pieper recorded a series of howls that he thinks might be a Bigfoot. There's wolves in northern Minnesota. Many of the things you hear. The Minnesota BFRO has recorded more vocalizations here than in any other part of the state. And that's probably because the terrain is so accommodating to Bigfoots. Lots of forested islands surrounded by miles of impenetrable bog.
Major species of Sasquatches are in the area or not. There's moose, there's deer. This is actually great habitat for Sasquatches. You have food, you have tons of water everywhere, and you have cover. Everything a Sasquatch needs to be happy.
While Bobo is investigating the forests and bogs of northern Minnesota, the rest of us are headed to a town hall meeting in the small farming community of Tamarack. We're hoping we're going to get a good turnout there because whenever we do, we run into some really good witnesses. We want to know where have things happened recently, because if nothing happens up where Bobo is at, we got to go find out where they moved off to. And the only way we're going to find that out quickly is if we get a hot tip from some locals. Among you, can we see a show of hands? How many people here have actually seen Bigfoots? Wow.
There's an old trailer house on the right-hand side, and there he was, looking into the trailer house windows.
I bring the Sunday paper over to the neighbor, and on the way back, there's this big black thing sitting there. I stayed there and watched it. It got up and walked on the two back feet.
We asked each and every one of those people to stay after the meeting and to come up and mark down on the map where the incident happened. It couldn't have been any clearer what was going on. Each and every report happened right along the west fork of the Kettle River. But there was daylight. That was just amazing. The other one, Jenna, she looks back and sees a big, tall creature standing out on the road. It stood there looking right at her. The third one was Christy. She and her husband were out on ATVs. This thing got up out of the brush and ran away into the woods. The common element among them is something that we rarely see. All three of these incidents happened in broad daylight, and it obviously isn't too worried about being seen by people.
Let's see how big this thing was and what distance she saw it at, in case there's a misidentification here. Since we're actually at the spot, why don't you walk me through exactly what happened that day and what direction you were traveling and where things were?
Well, I was heading to Moose Lake, and I saw these cars. Then I glanced over there, and I saw that thing. He had his hand on one side of the windows, and he kind of looked in there, like a nosy person. And then he turned, and he kind of looked this way.
Travel to northern Minnesota to determine if Bigfoots really do exist in this diverse terrain of wetlands, forest, and farms. After speaking to several eyewitnesses around here, we're learning that Sasquatches up here seem to be bigger, and they're apparently not afraid to show themselves in broad daylight. They're going to try to get to the coolest place they can. And the deepest, darkest part of the gorge where the Kettle River is where all these come together. That's where it's going to be coolest. Right there, and that's where we're at right now. When we plotted the sightings, we could see they weren't all surrounding a bog. They were following a river. And at this time of year, the river bottoms are going to be cooler.